Most people think that travel risk is about crime, terrorism, or getting sick. And yes, those risks exist. But they're not the biggest risk in modern travel. Not even close. The biggest travel risk in 2026 is something far more common, far more accepted, and far more dangerous, precisely because nobody questions it. It's dependence. More specifically, it's overdependence on a single system to manage your entire travel experience. Your phone. Think about what your phone is when you travel. It's your boarding pass, your hotel confirmation, your map, your translator, your banking, your communication, your emergency contact, your identity. And for most travelers, it's the only system they rely on. That's not convenience. That's a single point of failure. Over 80,000 mobile phones were reported stolen in London alone last year. Think about that for a second. That's not a rare event. That's not bad luck. That's a predictable, repeatable pattern in one of the most visited cities in the world. Not passports, not wallets, phones. The one device most travelers now depend on for everything. And yet people move through environments like that with their entire system sitting in their pocket, unprotected and unrecoverable. Let's walk this through. You land in a foreign country. Everything is smooth. You move through the airport, into a taxi, heading to your hotel. Somewhere along the way, your phone is lost, stolen, or simply stops working. Now what? Most people think that's inconvenient. It's not. It's destabilizing. Because what you've actually lost isn't just a device. You've lost access. Access to your documents, access to your money, access to your navigation, access to your contacts, access to your plans. Now you're in an unfamiliar environment, possibly tired, possibly stressed, and trying to make decisions without the system you've been relying on. This is where risk actually shows up, not in the event itself, but in how people respond to it. Over the past 30 years, working in high-risk environments around the world, I've seen this pattern again and again. The hazard is rarely the real problem. It's the loss of control that follows it. And in modern travel, we've quietly built a system where control is centralized in one device. Now layer in what's happening globally. We've got increasing digital requirements, electronic visas, app-based check-ins, biometric systems. We've got rising cybersecurity exposure, public Wi-Fi, data theft, identity risk. We've got geopolitical instability affecting infrastructure and connectivity in certain regions. And we've got travelers who are more connected than ever, but also more dependent than ever. So the question is not, is it safe to use public USB ports? Or should I use a VPN? Those are tactical questions. The real question is, what happens when your system fails? Because systems do fail. Devices break, batteries die, networks go down, things get lost, things get stolen. And when that happens, what's your backup? Most travelers don't have one. They've optimized for convenience, not resilience. Prepared travelers think differently. They don't try to eliminate risk. They remove single points of failure. That's the shift. It means thinking in layers. If this fails, what's next? If you lose your phone, how do you access your itinerary? If you can't access your banking, how do you pay? If you lose connectivity, how do you communicate? If you need to prove your identity, what do you have? This isn't about paranoia. It's about structure. And this is where there's a clear gap. The travel industry is exceptionally good at planning trips. Flights are booked. Hotels are confirmed. Itineraries are polished. But very little attention is given to what happens when those plans are disrupted. That space between the plan and the reality, that's where risk lives. And right now that space is largely unmanaged. What we're seeing is a shift. Travel is becoming more digital, more connected, more efficient. But at the same time, it's becoming more fragile, because everything is tied together. And when one thing fails, it cascades. So what does preparedness actually look like? At a basic level, it means redundancy, not complexity, not over-engineering, just simple, practical redundancy. Copies of critical information, alternative access to funds, secondary communication options, clear points of contact, a basic understanding of your environment. And perhaps most importantly, a mindset that assumes things might not go exactly as planned. Because when you assume that, you behave differently. You make better decisions. You stay calmer under pressure. You recover faster. This applies to individual travelers, it applies to advisors, and it absolutely applies to organizations. Because if you're responsible for approving or managing travel, this becomes a different conversation. If one of your employees loses their phone in a foreign country, what happens next? Do they have a backup plan? Do you? Is there a system in place? Or are you relying on the assumption that everything will work? These are the questions that are starting to surface more and more. And they're not going away, because the environment is changing faster than our habits are. This is exactly why I built TravRisk, to address that gap between planning and reality, to move the conversation from "is it safe?" to "are you prepared?" and to provide structured ways for individuals, advisors, and organizations to actually manage these risks. We're also getting very close to launching the Certified Travel Risk Manager (CRM) program. This is designed for professionals responsible for travel risk, safety, HR, or operations. People who need more than tips. They need systems. They need structure. They need something they can implement and stand behind. Because if something goes wrong, the question is not, "Did you mean well?" The question is, "What was your process?" So if there's one thing to take from this, stop thinking about travel risk as isolated issues and start thinking about it as a system. Because once you do that, you start to see the real vulnerabilities. And more importantly, you start to close them. Travel is still one of the most valuable things we can do. That hasn't changed. But how we prepare for it, that needs to. And the sooner we recognize that, the more confident and capable we become when we step out into the world.